call this meeting of the Carson City School Board to order. Today is Tuesday, March 24th. I'm going to start with a roll call, please. Trustee Carini?
I'm here.
Trustee Ramirez? Lupe, are you on the meeting?
Yep, here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Trustee Wilkie McCullough?
Here.
Trustee Crossman? Laurel, are you on?
Yes, I'm on. I'm here.
Perfect. Trustee Barner?
I'm here.
And Vice President Cassiopo?
Here.
So the first item of the agenda will be adoption of the agenda as submitted. And just a couple, I just wanted to remind everybody, anytime you speak, will you please identify yourself for the record?
This is Stacy Wilkie. Motion that we adopt the agenda as presented.
This is Vice President Casey.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion by the board? Seeing none or hearing none. Any public comment?
Mr. Walker, there's no public comment.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
I apologize. We're going to do a roll call vote just because of the format of this meeting.
Yeah.
So, Dawn?
Aye.
Lupe?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Laurel?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Joe? All right, thank you. Motion passes. Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America.
And
To the republic for which it stands,
one nation.
one nation, under God, indivisible.
You are muted. You can mute or unmute yourself by pressing *6.
Well, that, my colleagues, is what kindergarten the first day of school sounds like. Trustees, if you'll please keep your microphones muted until you want to speak. Just unmute when you have something to share, and then we'll cut that on the feedback. So first item, or the third item on the agenda, is the superintendent's report. Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, President Walker. Trustees, it's nice to have you with us this evening. It's a little unusual. You would appreciate.
You are unmuted.
Our setup here today, as the chairs are 6 feet apart from each other. As directed in the most recent guidance that we received from the governor this evening. I just wanted to give you a brief update as to what's happening in our schools. As you know, since school has been out, this week has essentially been developing our remote platform, which has been delivered to our students, both in paper form and also electronically. We want to recognize the hard work of our teachers, our principals, really all of our staff who have been attending and who have contributed mightily to serving the needs of our students, and who have responded in such a way that has really made us proud. We're grateful for their efforts. Yesterday was our first day of using that remote teaching platform, and the schools have described the process as having been successful. In fact, I heard from a teacher today who said at the high school level, the meeting that took place between the teacher and students was very rewarding, and there was great participation, and I believe the students were looking forward to having some semblance of normality again back into their lives. So we again appreciate all the work that has been accomplished by our staff. There are a huge number of unusual events and conditions that are happening. And every day there are changes involving local governments, involving staff, families, and students. And we're doing our very best to try and make things work. As of, for instance, Mr. Fueling let me know that on Monday, we served 1,261 breakfasts and the same number in lunches. So the total number of meals served yesterday was 2,522. So as you might imagine, there are some very dedicated people making sure that different services are being met. Coming up soon, we plan to respond to the governor's messages of tonight, and we'll take on any other events that are ours to take on. So, Mr. President, members of the board, that will conclude my comments for this evening, unless you have questions for me.
Trustees, are there any questions for Mr. Stokes? Hearing none, we'll move on to board reports. This is for information only, and we will start with Dawn.
No report tonight.
Thank you. Lupe?
I was hesitant of whether or not to bother the principals, but I did take the liberty of doing so simply because I felt that it was important to hear from the principal. So I was able to hear from Principal Calari from Mark Twain, and she said that currently approximately 65% of the packets for remote learning have been picked up by the parents. All PTO events are currently canceled until April 20th. The teachers and paraprofessional staff have been reaching out to the students and making great contact. If parents have questions, they can go to the Carson City School District page on the Mark Twain tab and look for the teacher's name and email them with any questions. They're working on a self-directed system for parent packet pickup next week, and they will be contacting the parents to notify them of the instructions. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Lupe. Stacy?
No report. I just want to thank staff for what they've been doing. Especially this is all new.
So Stacy, can you hold on for a second? Trustees, will you make sure that your mic is muted if you're not speaking right now? Thank you. Go ahead, Stacy.
Just that it's been an incredible effort by staff and the public to make sure this is all. I went last week around when they were serving lunches and we had only about 160. So to hear that it's up to 2,500 is very reassuring. So I just want to thank staff and everyone.
Thank you. Laurel?
Yes, here I am. For Fritz Elementary School, Mr. Brown would like to thank all the parents who came and picked up the instructional packet and wanted to let everyone know that next Monday, March 30th, will be the second packet distribution day. And that day they will have the packets for the week of March 30th through April 3rd and April 6th through April 9th. And he also wanted to thank the amazing Fritz staff who got everything ready in such a short time, and wanted to let all the Fritz families know how much they're missed and that they all hope to see them soon. For Fremont Elementary School, they too handed out packets on Monday. They handed out 2 weeks worth of packets this Monday, and they had all but 4 students pick up their packets. So they're doing a great job over there. They have also a Facebook page for Fremont Elementary that is updated regularly, and they have a Google site. It's FFNEWZ, so FF News, And if you search it on Google, it's the first one. And there's video on there from the staff to the students and lots of resources that are open to the public. And they also wanted to thank their staff and the board for being so supportive of their staff and all the good work that they were able to accomplish there. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Laurel. Richard?
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. There again, that I would just like to thank all the classified and certified staff, administrators, and everything for everything they've done through this trying time. This is all new to everybody, and I think under the circumstances, everybody's doing a great job. I'd like to thank Mr. Stokes. You've done a terrific job, in my opinion, putting out information to the families and to the board and other employees. So thank you very much. I think everything at Boardwalk Bray seems to be going well, is what I've been told. The packets have been sent out and picked up. They're working on the next packages for next week and the week after that for week 2 and 3. And they'll be passed out next Monday. And I've been told that the teachers and staff there miss the kids and hope they get back soon. And I think a lot of parents will be glad if the school starts again. But other than that, everything seems to be going well. And I think that concludes my report. But just thank everybody again.
Thank you, Richard. Joe?
Yeah, Mike, thanks. Joe Cassiopo. I just wanted to quickly thank Fremont Elementary School. I know we all attended reading events prior weeks, and I received a couple of nice thank you cards. So I just wanted to thank Fremont Elementary School. That was a nice experience. Sealiger, I went by there the end of last week, and I observed some of the meal pickups, and I thought they went really smooth. I think the people out there, the paraprofessionals and everybody outside handing them out and working with the parents to make sure they got these meals did an outstanding job. In a very minor way, I tried to help them out a little bit, but they had a nice system in place and they didn't need any help from me. I also wanted to take a second and thank Mimi Laughlin from Board of Bray. She's been helping the teachers out with technical support, and there's been a lot of people behind the scenes helping the teachers getting ready for this week, and Mimi was one of those shining stars and wanted to say thank you to her. And last, to the parents, this is, it's uncharted territory for all of us, for the parents as well, and they are trying to juggle jobs, juggle lack of work at times, and now make sure their kids are receiving their education while at home. And I just wanted to thank all the parents. They're a part of this equation, and we appreciate their cooperation as well. That completes my report.
Thank you, Joe. For myself, I'll just say, as far as NASB goes, I participated in a teleconference last night, probably in between two other things that I had going on. I actually saw Trustee Cassiopo and his wife walking by as I was in my car on a teleconference. One of the things we talked about last night was in the case of things getting worse or situations changing, one of the things we discussed was possibly having emergency powers for the superintendent. Mr. Stokes and I discussed that, and at this point, we feel like it's not necessary. But if that changes, he will certainly let us know, and we'll call a meeting to kind of discuss that. Other districts shared some of their struggles with technology and some of the different ways that they're getting around that. They have some companies who have opened up Wi-Fi for families that don't have Wi-Fi at home. And so that was something that people are trying to do. And I think that really there's just a sense of all of our school districts in this state, big and small, really struggling with this situation and the need to kind of come together and support each other. So that was the topic of last night's discussion. And then for my report, last week we got quite a few emails from concerned staff members and their families concerning safety and having to work. And, in light of the fact that the governor has deemed school employees essential services for the state, Mr. Stokes and I took a morning, went around to several of the schools and thanked staff, just like several of the trustees have said that they have done. And so, I just want to say to our employees, we are amazed by the fabulous work you're doing. I've seen some interesting educational videos, which are fun and funny, and I think that the students will enjoy. I know that a lot of our staff members are going outside of their normal job conditions, and that presents some problems that we're all kind of getting through together. But we appreciate everything everyone's doing, from administrators to custodians to teachers, paraprofessionals, and even parents and students. We're all having to work through this together, and hopefully this will be something that'll pass quickly, and we'll all look back in a few months and laugh about these events. But until then, we might all be in for a couple tough weeks, and so we'll work through this together. And so that will conclude my report. Do we have any association reports, Renee? No. Okay. Next item of the agenda is public comment. Comments may be made by the members of the public on any matter within the authority of this board. Please note that public comment will be taken on items marked for possible action before action is taken on such items. And members of the public are encouraged to comment on such items at the time they are being considered. Although board members may respond to questions and discuss issues raised during public comment, no action may be taken on matters until the matter is placed on an agenda for an action meeting of the board. In making public comment, speakers are asked to come to the table, sign in, speak into the microphone, and identify for themselves for the record. And obviously, reading through this normal disclaimer, things are a little bit different in this format. We have invited the public to sign in, and they can type their comments, which will be read into the record, and if needed, we'll respond. Do we have any public comment?
At this time, Mr. Walker, we have no public comment.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is discussion of possible action on the proposed changes to CCSD Policy 245, which is the wellness policy. This is our second reading, and it is for possible action. Mr. Fueling, are you with us?
I am, President Walker.
All right, take it away.
Thank you, President Walker. Andrew Fueling for the record. Related to wellness, if I could please just have a moment to send a big thanks to some folks who helped make the nutrition meal distribution work so well over the last week. Elizabeth Snyder, Sandra Ramirez, our rep from Aramark, Mary Sawyers, our kitchen managers, our nutrition staff, our paraprofessional staff, our delivery guys, Kevin and Andrew, Dave Silva and his custodial crew, Sheree Fletcher, and transportation, Mr. Redina, Boys and Girls Club, and their staff, Ron Wood staff, Sheila Story, and Sear, and so many other staff and community members that have reached out and offered their help. Really put together just an amazing week for the community to offer support. So I just wanted to say that, Mr. Russell, I hope I didn't get too far off my agenda topic with that, but it's related to wellness. So anyway, we have our policy that the board has heard at for the first reading at the prior meeting, policy 245, which is the district wellness policy. There were minimal changes to language there, as was discussed at our wellness meeting. I believe it was February 26th at the quarterly PLC meeting that we had our wellness committee meet. There's no changes since the last board meeting, and just considered for your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Fueling. Do we have any questions from the board? I guess I'll just go down the list. If you have questions, when I say your name, feel free to ask questions. Donald?
I don't.
Thank you. Lupe?
No questions.
Stacy?
None. I'm just glad we didn't postpone it after the last meeting.
Laurel?
No questions.
Thank you. Richard?
No questions.
Joe?
No questions. One quick comment on bullet 6. That starts be provided a clean, safe, and pleasant setting. After the word setting, I was thinking instead of another and, maybe saying, comma, with adequate time to eat.
Mr. Fueling, your thoughts on that?
I think that's not a problem at all. It probably clarifies the sentence a bit.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this issue?
Mr. Walker, there's no public comment.
Thank you. So I'll entertain a motion from the floor.
I'll make a motion. This is Richard. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the proposed revisions to CCSD Policy 245 to include March 24th, 2020 as a revised date with the change suggested by Trustee Cassiopo.
This is Trustee Cassiopo. I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion by Richard, second by Joe. Any further discussion by the board? Hearing none, any public comment?
No public comment, Mr. Walker.
All right, I'll call a roll call vote. Donald?
Aye.
Lupe?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Laurel?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Couldn't hear you, Joe. I apologize.
Oh, I said aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Fueling. Next item on the agenda is, go ahead. Next item on the agenda is the discussion and possible action to temporarily change the current day, place, and time for regular meetings of the Board of Trustees until June 30th, 2020 for possible action. Just to kind of keep everybody up to date. So obviously, Mr. Stokes and I have been working really closely since the school closure has been called by the governor. I think probably we've talked more this week than the whole 15 years I've known him. But I know that he's keeping trustees included in those conversations, and thanks to open meeting laws, it's not like I could send out emails and whatnot. So he and Renee are doing that for us. So thank you, Mr. Stokes, Renee, for kind of bridging that gap. And then also we know you're holding down for all of us. And so we appreciate all the hard work you're both doing. So thank you. One of the things Mr. Stokes and I discussed yesterday, and I'll let him weigh in on this, really the big thing we need to make sure of is expenditures, bills that need to be paid by the district, and all of those emergency services can be paid, and then we can approve them in the form of warrants when we have our meetings. And so we kind of figured out a way that we can do that and keep the district moving forward. The other big thing that we have to get figured out in this next month and a half or so is our budget for next year. And so what we have looked at is we had a meeting scheduled for April 14th, and you'll see that in your board packet, that was one of the dates that the staff had suggested that we use to finalize our tentative budget that's going to be submitted to the Department of Taxation. In our discussion yesterday, that was during spring break. And Mr. Stokes and I wanted to move that a little bit earlier so that staff members who wanted to weigh in and give feedback about budget considerations had an appropriate way to do that. And so what we're proposing is that we would actually have a meeting. Our next meeting would be April 7th if the board approves. And then we're envisioning that we probably need 2 meetings in May to finalize the budget. And so the May 12th meeting would be used for the board to kind of make some final determinations and give staff direction. And then the May 26th meeting will be when we have our actual final vote on the budget. So those are our proposals. And I'm going to let Mr. Stokes weigh in on any of his thoughts of this, or if he has anything to add to what I said.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think you've covered the conditions that we had identified quite clearly. Obviously, to try to hold a meaningful meeting during spring break was not a desirable condition. And so even though the 14th is the day when we would typically have our school board meeting, it seemed to make more sense to change that 14th meeting to an earlier date, and that way staff would be more likely and certainly available to participate in a school board meeting.
Do we have any questions from trustees?
This is Laurel. I have a question. Are we looking at canceling the other regularly scheduled meeting in April, so we would only meet once on April 7th and not again on the 21st or the 28th? It would have fallen on the 14th and the 28th. But are we just going to meet once in April?
So Trustee Crossman, this is Richard Stokes. One of the considerations that we talked about, and of course it's being impacted right now because of the coronavirus, the 28th of April would have been that meeting that we hold at Carson High School where we honor our employees. And this year we have named individual classified and certified employees of the year, but we have not held the individual interviews that resulted then in just one individual who would be our certified or classified employee of the year. We've elected simply to honor all of our staff and not have that April 28th meeting. And so as President Walker had suggested, we would forego that meeting just in lieu of current conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Laurel.
This is Stacy Wilkie. But with everything changing that quickly and with the budget, especially with a lot of our revenue that deals with sales tax and the DMV ad valorem tax, is that a reasonable thing to do, to allow 30 days to go by before we talk about how that's going to impact the budget?
Trustee Wilkie, I'm not sure we're going to know a lot by then anyway. It's typically not until later in the year that we have some of those individual projections, and we may turn to AJ if he's got another thought on the topic. Mr. Fueling, are you there?
Yeah, I think that we're still, we should be receiving updated numbers from taxation here rather soon. But even then, usually the numbers, if they do change, they aren't far off from what we receive in the preliminary numbers. So we'll have maybe a slightly better idea of projections with that said, clearly what's happening right now is going to have a significant impact on revenues for the state. And that's important in that the local school support tax, which is the largest factor in our total general fund revenue, that is basically fully guaranteed by the state, meaning that if those revenues would decrease, the state is effectively on the hook to cover the balance of it. So when we're looking at our per pupil amount, while that it may change slightly from what's in the bill, the second year of the biennium, there can always be a slight change. It likely wouldn't be impacted. Property tax revenues, which make up the kind of other larger portion of that, generally don't change that fast. So I think it's really a matter of the state may have to do some work trying to figure out what the impact's going to be. But I don't believe that there should be too significant of an impact to, at least with the best information we have, to what next year's budget would look like.
Okay, and this is Stacy Wilkie again. When we watched the Board of Supervisors meeting, they're talking about their tentative budget. They had a +2 going in, and now they want the financial person to put a -10% in it. So I worry about the SRO program and the other MOUs that we have with the city and how that's going to impact those. So that's just kind of a heads up there.
Thank you. That's good to know.
Thank you, Stacy. And one of the things I'll just say that Mr. Stokes and I have talked about several times in the last couple weeks here is that we're unique in the size and location of our district, and the fact that if we needed to pull an emergency meeting together with 3 days' notice, we could do that rather quickly, and we would do that. And so if there's any developments that happen that we need everybody to weigh in on, we will schedule a meeting.
This is Stacy again. Thank you. I appreciate that reassurance.
No problem. Any other questions or comments from the board?
This is Richard. I have one question. On these proposed 3 meetings, the April 7th, May 12th, and May 26th, are you thinking having them remote like we're having them tonight?
Yes, until the governor changes orders, we'll consistently follow what the directives of the state are. And so until things change, this is the format we're proposing that we move forward with. However, the board has it in their power to change that. Mr. Stokes and I just tried to put a plan in place that would adhere to best practices and what's been asked of the state.
All right, thank you. I'm just wondering if the schools are allowed to return on, I think it's April 20th or something like that. Would that change where we could have a meeting about the budget with everybody in the room? Because I'd missed the small font on the visual aids that Mr. Feeling puts out.
Well, I'd hate for you to be deprived, Richard, and me be selfish and have all the fun for myself. So certainly if these conditions are lifted and we are back to school as normal, I think that's everybody's assumption that school boards would resume as prior to now. However, if we're changing the dates, we would change those dates, and so we still would have those dates for the meetings, but they could be in-person meetings if the restrictions have been lifted.
All right, thank you, Mike.
Any other questions? Okay, any public comment?
Yes, Mr. Walker, we do have public comment from Carrie Pryor. She states that they're coming up with a plan for a group photo to be displayed at PDC to honor the Teachers of the Year. We have all the Teachers of the Year from the past 20 years or so displayed at PDC, and we would like a collective photo when all this is over with all 11 nominees Folks will always remember 2020, and those students who become teachers will really remember it. It will be fun to capture it in a picture form.
Thank you, Carrie. We appreciate your attention at these meetings and your great ideas. So I think that would actually be fabulous. Any other public comment?
No, Mr. Walker, no additional public comment at this time.
All right. So unless there's any further comments by the trustees, I'll entertain a motion from the floor.
This is Richard. I can make that motion. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees temporarily change the designation of regular school board meetings to one per month. Actually, 2 in May, 1 in April, and 2 meetings in May. A meeting on April 7th, another meeting on May 12th, and a meeting on May 26th, including such that meetings will be held on the following dates. I already said the dates. At, this says 6 p.m. is that for the closed sessions, and 7 p.m. for open sessions in the Sierra Room of the Carson City Community Center, 851 East William Street, Carson City, Nevada.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by, was that Don or Joe?
Don.
Okay, so we have a motion by Richard, a second by Don. Is there any discussion by the trustees?
This is Laurel, just with a question on the motion, because I'm not sure where you're at, Mike, right now. Are you in the Sierra Room, or did we, because the governor's order did waive the requirement for a physical location of the meeting, so if we're not having a physical location in April, should we have that in the motion?
I am physically in the Sierra Room with Mr. Stokes, Mr. Russell, the IT team, and Renee. We're using the technology in this room because it kind of is conducive to this format of a meeting. But I think the order, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, pertains to we don't have to have a physical location for public to attend or have public comment.
Yeah, so I think the motion is fine the way it's stated. The directive provides very specifically that the mandate to have a physical location provided is waived. It doesn't prohibit a gathering like we have tonight where a physical location was noted and some select staff and the president show up. So I think it's fine to include the location in the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions? All right, any public comment?
No public comment at this time, Mr. Walker.
All right, so I'll call a roll call vote. Donald?
Aye.
Lupe?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Laurel?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Joe? Joe, we didn't hear you if you voted.
Okay, can you hear me? I said aye.
Okay, I hear you. And it's an aye from me as well, so the motion passes. Thank you. I'll just say, without getting off topic, I've been dreading this conversation remotely all day, and so I appreciate you all working with us and having a good deliberation and making it easy for me to moderate. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. This is for possible action.
I'll make a motion.
This is Joe, correct?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Don.
Don Carini.
Okay.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the consent agenda as submitted.
And this is Joe. I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Dawn, second by Joe. Any discussion by the trustees? Hearing none. Any public comment?
No additional public comment at this time.
All right, so if there's no discussion by the board, I'll call roll call vote. Donald?
Aye.
Lupe?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Laurel?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Motion passes. I'm an aye also. Informational items. Do we have any questions from the trustees regarding informational items? Which obviously are minimal since school's not really in physical session. Do we have any requests or future agenda items? Hearing none, I'll just tell trustee Wilkie that this is a 44-minute meeting, so we'll have to check your records. Meeting is adjourned. No?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Made me
Thanks,
laugh
everybody.
again.
Thank you.
Hold on one second, trustees.
Mr. Walker, we have one other additional comment as we close. This is from the